Hey everybody, and welcome to another Interstellar Modeler. It's now time to start my next project. This is the Battlestar Galactica Raptor. Alright, so of course this is a ship from the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series. I've built the Vipers, the Colonial One, and the Galactica, as well as the Pegasus models. I've been waiting for this one for quite some time, and it came out last year. It's just been on my shelf and finally getting to it. So let's go ahead and take a quick look inside the box. The instructions look pretty descriptive. I'm not going to go through them in any particular detail because this model has been reviewed a number of times already. The parts come in 5 separate bags, and I'm not going to open up every single one of these, again, because the model has been reviewed before, but I will mention a couple things. First of all, the detailing on the wings here, particularly these are the steps. This appearance, or what you see here, is how apparently the ship looked in its CGI form. But when you saw the ship in its full-sized mock-up, the steps look different. And so you can build a model this way, or if you want to build it like the full-size mock-up, you'll need to get a hold of one of the photo-etch sets. This one is made by Paragraphics, and so you can see here the steps do appear different. The photographic set obviously is good for lighting as well. You can see all the panels that come with this set here, and then we've got more exterior detailing. So I've decided not to light the ship. I know that's a little disappointing. My reasoning is because I'm just running out of room for display of my model kits here, and rather than having this tied to a base, because the model is a fairly good size, you're going to have a fairly good size base as well. I decided just not to bother with it. So if you want to see the model lit, which looks fantastic, you can check out Lou Dalmaso's channel. He did a great job with lighting the interior. Okay, so the first step, of course, is to go ahead and wash the parts. I'm going to go ahead and proceed with that, and then we will get started with construction. So following the instructions here, we're going to begin with the engines, piecing them together. However, we're leaving off this part here, number 77, and substituting it with the parts we get here from the Paragraphics photo etch kit. So as you work with the engines here, the one thing that you have to address is this seam on the back side. It's pretty prominent, so the problem with doing these types of seams, though, is that you will wear away the detailing here. You can see there's some delineated areas here and here. And as you sand away the seam, you can smooth that over. So what I'm doing to maintain the detailing here is, or at least to put back the detailing, is to use a squared off file. It just happens to fit right into the space here. So it allows me to at least put back some of that detailing. Alright, so it's time to install this piece here. So I've bent the little foot plates there, and I'm going to apply just a little cement. What I'm using for this project is something I found online. This is a GS Hypo Cement. It comes with this fine tip applicator, so we can control the amount of glue going onto these things just a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and apply some of this onto these little areas here, and we'll go ahead and slide it in. They want this rectangular piece, or this rectangular detail here, to be at the 7 o'clock hour. Alright, next we have to install this piece here. Now this is going to slide right into this notch here. Okay. Now if you've not worked with photo etch parts before, again, the sheet looks like this, and all I'm just using is a sharp X-Acto knife to separate these pieces here. And once they're separated, just use a file to smooth any of the excess metal that's left over after you snip it. Okay, and these are how the two engines are looking here. You can see the exhaust areas are done here. And this is ready to prime. Okay, the next step now is to move on to these wings here that we have to apply our photo etch pieces to. Now, as I said in the introduction, we have to remove the detailing here because I want to make this look like the full-size mock-up versus the CGI version. So our photo etch kit comes with these pieces, and all you have to do is remove the detailing here. So you can see it's fairly raised, right? And this is something that I've not done before, but I was advised to use a chisel, and this is something you can hook into your X-Acto knife, and this is a number 17 chisel. Let me just show you the packaging here by Excel. And it's very simple. You just have to fit the chisel underneath the detailing and just lift it up. And you want to do this little by little because you want to avoid gouging any of the surrounding area. Okay, so we want to leave this detail here in place, so we want to chisel away from that. Okay, so as you see, you just apply some pressure here, and you want to get underneath the detailing. And I found the trick to be just going little by little, as with most things. Well, something I should have thought of before installing these is to address this seam here. You can see there's a pretty significant one. And my concern is I just don't want to get anything on here. So I'm going to go ahead and mask this off and apply some putty. We'll put the other wing together and address the seam as well before installing these. So for these seams, I decided to follow Lou Dalmasso's lead with regard to what to use. And I'm just using this glazing putty here. And since it's a pretty heavy seam, it should take care of it. So as you can see, you just mask off the areas here and able to confine the putty to those areas there. And so we're just going to give this some time to dry, and it should take care of the seam pretty well. Before moving on here, I wanted to talk about these panels that are missing here on the forward section of each wing. There are 3 panels that should be there, and you can remedy that situation by either utilizing the Paragraphics template. He provides one here that you can cut out some pieces of styrene plastic. They're recommending 0.5 millimeter styrene plastic to do that with. Or I had forgotten that Lou Dalmasso actually includes these in his vinyl mask sheet here. So you just peel them off here and put them into place, and you can apply your primer over them. So I had forgotten this was on here. I went to watch his video again for some other reference and was reminded that these are on here. So I had already cut these out, and I think I'm going to go ahead and move ahead with my plastic pieces here, only because I think the added thickness here of the plastic will allow them to resemble the other panels a little bit better. Again, nothing wrong with using those, but since I already have these, I'm going to go ahead and proceed with gluing these into place. Alright, and you can see the panels now are in place, and what I also did, by the way, was to take my X-Acto knife and just run it along the edges of each of these sides, just to give it a more beveled appearance versus just a squared off appearance there, and make it look a little bit more like the other panels do here. Alright, you can see I've applied some primer, and I'm happy with the way the extra panels turn out. I think they blend in pretty well with the ones that are molded into the model. And you can also see I've applied some black paint now to the steps. That's simply just to have a darker base coat there as we apply the gunmetal. I think this technique worked real well with the BB-8 model, so I'm going to go ahead and do it here as well. Once this is done, we'll apply the painting masks and set this aside as I move on to the interior of the ship, and we'll get to painting the exterior a little bit later. I have some ideas to share with you with regard to that. And the gunmetal is on now, and I'm going to let this give enough time to dry, and I'll apply the painting masks. We are now working on the interior. First step is to paint the instrument panels white. These are the areas we're going to be applying these decals. The white primer is supposed to allow the decals to stand out better, to accentuate them, versus putting them against a dark background. So once you peel off the painting masks, you'll have these white areas, and then we'll slip the decals into place. The painting masks look like this. They come in one single sheet. This particular area here corresponds with our decal sheets. You can see in the instructions he's done them side by side. Alright, so here we have the finished panels now. They're all painted, and what I decided to go for, I was trying to replicate the colors that I saw on these pictures. These are the ones I pulled offline, just printed them out here. This one is a shot that gives us the most direct reflected light of those panels, so I think this is more of a true representation of the colors. And you can see it's kind of a bluish gray color, kind of metallic. And so what I decided to do was to mix these two colors here first, a 90-10 mixture with a majority of this. And I tried to apply that onto the pieces. As you know, they were primed white, and it was just not dark enough. So I went back and painted this as a base coat, and then applied several coats of this, giving it a metallic finish. So it looks pretty good, I think. It's, again, not an exact match, but I'm pretty satisfied with it. You can see now the painting masks have been removed, and this is the back panel here. We've got the front instrument panel, and this instrument panel slides into here. And so what I'm going to do next is go ahead and lay down the decals, and again, leaving this a white background here for those decals should accentuate them pretty well. So I'll show you what those look like here in just a second. Alright, this is how things are looking, and I think it's a great idea to mount them against the white background like that. It really makes the decals shine through. So I'm very happy with the way they turned out. This is the front instrument panel. Someone had made note that the decals were a little difficult to work with. I didn't find that to be the case. It took the usual time of a minute or so to get them to loosen on the sheet, and I was able to move them onto the surface here. I did use the microsol and microset solutions to help out. Also went ahead and applied some weathering here to our floor using the MIG ammo solutions, both the Starship wash and the Modern Vehicles wash. Well, I'm afraid I had a bit of a mishap here as I was putting the pilots together. I ended up losing one of the arms. So I looked all over for it, just couldn't find it, and I was thinking that either just give up on this pilot and just leave him out, or I could try recreating the arm. So I thought I would give a shot at doing that and see what I could come up with. So I took this styrene rod here that I had in my junk drawer. I'm not sure what width this is, but it seemed about the same thickness as the other arm. Cut off a piece about the same length, bent it, and then I wrapped it in this epoxy sculpt putty. There's two parts to this, and just let it dry. When I came home, I attempted at carving some detailing here to kind of replicate the opposite side here, and glued it on. So it doesn't look too bad. It's not perfect, obviously, but I hope we can obscure the arm by placing this pilot here so that the arm faces here against the window, and hopefully it won't be too obvious. Overall, I have to say that these pilot figures are not very good to begin with. There's really not a lot of surface detailing. You can see some of the detailing of the suit here, but really they're not that great of a figure. But I guess in this case it worked to my advantage, since all I had to do was just carve in some lines to kind of replicate the other side. Alright, so far it seems to be turning out alright. To get this color here for the base coat, what I did was I used this German green here. It's a Vallejo color, and I mixed in some silver and just a little bit of black, and it came out to be the right shade, at least that I was looking for here, and you can see it has some shimmer to it because we added that silver. I've been pretty satisfied and very happy with these Vallejo colors. I'm trying to go to acrylics for the most part, and these have worked out pretty well, so something you might want to look into. Okay, what I'm going to do next is add some shadowing and some highlights. Alright guys, these are the completed figures now. I added some shading with a darker version of the base coat, and then I added some highlights using silver along the tops of the legs and the arms just to accentuate the light bouncing off of those areas. The helmets were painted with Vallejo silver, and then the visor I added just gunmetal there to make it a little bit darker, just to give some contrast. And you can see another detail I added here were seatbelts. And so I was looking at some pictures of the show, and I saw that the pilots wore seatbelts while they sat in the cockpit. So I did a little research and looked for an article, or just to kind of see if there were any reference articles about how to make seatbelts. And came across this one. This gentleman posted that he makes seatbelts out of masking tape. So this is what he suggested doing. I think it worked out okay. Took some masking tape here, painted it the color of the seatbelt, which in this case was going to be black. I cut them to the width that I thought would work, and then I took a secondary piece of tape which is a different texture than the first one, so I just used a Tamiya tape here and cut out some small squares I think would function as buckles. So I wrapped them around the seatbelt there and painted them silver, and this is how they turned out. Alright, so what's left now is to put the interior together, which isn't very complicated. And so what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and end this video, and we will pick up in part 2 as we continue the construction of our Raptor. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me here as usual on my YouTube channel or at interstellarmodeler@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in part 2. Take care.